So that money was still sitting in their savings account. But it wasn't going to last forever though, was it? And what about the extension they were planning on? What about Christmas? What a crappy thing to do to someone at this time of year. Henry needed to go home and start looking for another job immediately. He knew from the last time that there were jobs out there, so maybe it would be for the best if he didn't mention anything to his wife just yet. How much better would it sound if he could say, "Sorry, Lottie, I've been made redundant again, but don't worry, I found another job, and I'm starting it next week." Besides, he didn't want to spoil Christmas for her or the children, and he certainly didn't want her fretting about being able to afford to buy Christmas presents. He got in his car, thankful it was his own vehicle and not a company car, and threw his briefcase in the back, before realising he still had the letter in his hand. Not wanting Lottie to see it, he reached behind, snagged the handle of the briefcase on the back seat, and drew it towards him. After stuffing the letter inside, he started the engine and made his slow, steady way home across country. The familiar sights as he neared home set his teeth on edge. Applewell was a little village 2 miles from the sea in the depths of West Wales, surrounded by farmland and rolling hills. If the wind was in the right direction, which it nearly always was, you could smell ozone and salt in the air. It was beautiful, but Applewell meant home, and home meant Lottie and having to lie to her by omission. There was another reason he wasn't looking forward to arriving home this evening, and that was the children. He loved them dearly, and he'd lay down his life for them, but dear God, they were hard work, and so noisy. He was exhausted, defeated and depressed, and not in the mood to be clambered over and shouted at. It would be tea time in about half an hour, and he could picture the scene. Lottie in the kitchen cooking, trying to keep her eye on Morgan, their youngest at 2.5, while Sabrina, 10, and Robin, 6, played havoc upstairs. The brother and sister argued continually, and after a day at work, he sometimes found it draining. When he was about a mile or so outside the village, Henry pulled into a small lay-by and wound down the window. The air was chilly, a stiff breeze blowing past the car, and it was starting to get dark, the sky laden with heavy clouds. Cows lowing in a nearby field made him twist in his seat to stare at them through the bars of a metal gate. They were a typical herd of Welsh blacks, hardy and with shaggy coats, and not easy to see in the encroaching darkness. The one closest to him was busily nosing a pile of hay which the farmer had left to supplement the meagre grass at this time of year. It was so quiet, Henry thought he could hear the beast munching. A robin landed on the gate and chirped noisily, cross with the human intrusion into its territory, before darting away, allowing the silence to descend once more as a steady drizzle began to fall. He breathed in deeply, the air redolent with the scent of winter and a hint of cow, and he tried not to cry as he rested his head back on his seat and closed his eyes, wishing he could stay there forever, despite the increasing chill. An old poem came to mind, something about having the time to stop and stare at cows. It looked like he was going to have all the time in the world to stop and stare at them before too long, and his stomach turned over. He'd only just settled into this new job, and now he was going to have to look for another one. The thought of attending interviews, trying to sell himself all over again, and persuade a stranger in a suit to employ him, made him feel sick. He didn't mind selling. He was a salesman, for goodness sake, and good at it. But it was one thing selling a product, and quite another altogether to convince a potential employer you were good enough. For some reason, Henry never did feel good enough. Sales, no matter what the product you were trying to shift, was often a precarious business when it came to the salesman's income. He said salesman, but it was just as likely to be a